Absolutely. All righty. Good morning, folks. Let's look at the first project here. So this was one out on the West Coast, Northwest, out in Tacoma, as you can see. So we work with a lot of education facilities, this one being private. Big kicker there is, hey, they're able to tap into certain tax incentives where public schools, of course, usually are not. So that was a good kind of find in that realm. I guess as far as the project itself, so this was actually brought to us by their facilities manager. So this was their FM director or manager on site in the facility. And another kind of caveat or kind of interesting, I guess, aspect of this project was that it's also a historical site. So it is on the National Registry of Historical Sites, essentially. So the FM director came to us in the feasibility stage of the project. So very early on, just kind of like Natalie was touching on the timeline, just to kind of get an idea of what is available. So out of that, you can see, out of that report, I pulled together a nice 22, there was 22 eligible incentives. I had a phone call with him and his constituents. From there, we kind of whittled it down to those 9 incentives. And again, this is just really based on scope and kind of what made sense given the timeline of the project and the most kind of pertinent, I guess, kind of scope of work, you know, like if the HVAC was really needing to get upgraded, lighting, same thing, their energy bills were through the roof. So they came to us. That's where we, you know, chipped it down from the 22 down to the 9. Through that conversation as well, I kind of touched on it, that being a national historical site, we were able to tap into certain grants, certain funding on that level. So that was kind of a nice, I guess, unveiling of of an incentive that they were not necessarily aware of, but just didn't know, hey, what does that process look like? It can be very cumbersome. So from there, we were able to kind of connect them to our third-party experts to talk through that process and grabbing some more money to help essentially help out with the funding of the project. So you can see on the far left, the soft estimate that I came up with out of the phone call, a little over $120,000. So very, very healthy. Washington State has very good incentives out there. So once we chipped it down to those 9, you can see on the far right what we applied for: HVAC, lighting, usually the low-hanging fruit. They also looked at water conservation, food equipment for the cafeteria, and then some compressed air rebates. This is all through local utilities and then a statewide program that Washington offers. So almost $50,000 in just cash rebates there. And then looking down below that, that's where I'm talking about those tax-related incentives, historic preservation. There was a sustainability grant from the county. And then, of course, an energy efficiency tax credit. Again, being that they're privately funded, they were able to tap into those tax incentives, which we usually don't see for schooling or education facilities on the public level, at least. So pretty successful. We came pretty close to that. And yeah, now they've moved in from the feasibility stage into the conceptual design and moving forward with those projects, of course, you know, taking into consideration those extra dollars, cash rebates, and of course, tax incentives on top of that. So tax or financial incentives on top of that. So pretty successful project up there in the Northwest. Next slide, Natalie, please.
Well, I was going to say, I know folks are going to have this question, so I'll kind of ask it real quick.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you touch? So let me first just define. Remember, folks, here's the 2-minute survey that was submitted. And historically, we are used to seeing in that region with, you know, on asset types like this, with this particular scope of work, about $123,000 in cash reimbursements. So that said, Grace, can you tell us why there's a little bit of a difference over here as far as what the customer actually captured and why they only went after 9 incentives again? Can you just maybe high level touch on that?
Yeah, it was just kind of what was the most pertinent. Like I said, they really needed to prop up their HVAC system, and the lighting was just sucking their energy, and their bills were super high. So we just really, I mean, we looked at it from a strategic level, I guess, if you will. And that's where we just said, all right, for this time, for this phase, if you will, scope of the project, we're just going to focus on those 9. That's why, there might be some discrepancy between that 123 number and then that 50,000 number on the far right there. Mm-hmm.